have been telling you about a body parts found in the trunk of a Tesla owned by the singer David. We now know who the victim is in this case, and there are a lot of twists and turns.
I will say this, there are some things that, and I'm talking physical evidence that was at that house that is, there could have been greater plans as far as getting rid of her, and it's scary, sadistic stuff. You can see the person and you can see what they're wearing something pretty distinctive, and there's photos that I have from 12 hours earlier, a person at the house wearing the same thing.
The internet is starting to realize something chilling about David, and it's not coming from a headline or an expose, it's coming from his silence. For months, the artist who once captivated millions with haunting lyrics and emotional visuals has completely vanished from the public eye. No interviews, no tributes, not even a single rest in peace post for Celeste Rivas Hernandez, the girl who, according to multiple sources, wasn't just close to him, she was his everything. So why, when the person closest to you dies under mysterious circumstances, do you stay silent? Before we dive into this dark, twisted timeline of evidence, whispers, and lawsuits, make sure to like and subscribe, because what's unraveling around David could end up being one of the most haunting scandals in modern music. It all began quietly, with the sudden death of Celeste.
Died in the back of my mind. Like, I didn't kill her physically, but in the back of my mind, she died. And I didn't even cry, not a single tear.
In the back of my mind, I killed you, and I didn't even regret it. I can't believe I said it.
A young woman whose life was cut short far too soon. From the start, nothing added up. The timeline was inconsistent, the reactions were hollow, and the official narrative felt like it was written to cover something instead of explain it. David canceled his tour dates and vanished. No press, no posts, no public appearance, like the world had hit pause on his existence. But silence in this industry never means stillness. It usually means strategy, and the way his label handled it made people's stomachs turn. Darkroom, under Interscope, stayed quiet, refusing to release statements or clarifications, only letting his manager, Josh Marshall, issue a quick denial about any involvement. That one line, and then nothing else became its own kind of confession. Fans could feel it. Something was being hidden, and every day that passed without a word only made that silence heavier.
Recovered. We don't have any of her at that property. We have pictures of her and that were taken by David, we assume, because it's not on a camera phone, but these photos are on a regular camera at different locations, and it really makes me think that it's likely she had another place she was staying. I can tell you that there was a lot of time spent towards downtown LA, and I'll say the last photo that we have of Celeste is January 2nd, 2020. A crime 100% happened here. At minimum, it's the concealment of a body, right? So we know somebody did that. Hopefully it's not, a mutilation. Hopefully those initial reports were wrong about her being dismembered. But one thing I have to say, even though I talked about how we found some things that could have meant they had a really twisted plan in place to get rid of her, it never went in motion. So you can't charge somebody for a crime that they may have thought about doing. So, we may never know more about that.
Then came the first real crack in the surface. Private investigator Steve Fisher went public with findings that shook everything we thought we knew. He revealed that after months of research, there was no confirmed footage placing Celeste at the property everyone online was obsessing over. Instead, he found a different kind of trail photographs, allegedly taken by David himself, not on a phone, but on an old-fashioned camera. Those photos weren't from the house. They were from completely different locations. And one of them, the last known image of Celeste, was dated the 2nd of January 2025 near downtown Los Angeles. That detail alone destroyed the narrative the internet had built. If she wasn't at that property, then where was she? Who was she with? And why did the last known trace of her life lead back to the same man who has since gone silent? Online detectives took this revelation and ran with it. Reddit threads popped up with titles like "Proof David rented 2 apartments" and "Celeste's secret stay." They claimed David had been leasing 2 different properties at once, one near Hollywood and another in an area frighteningly close to where her body was eventually found.
One of the things is, how does a person that's been missing since April 2024 be found today? dismembered in
It was quiet, nice. She come in like if she buy like a chips, soda, and leave. Sometimes she come with a friend from the neighborhood.
Fans cross-checked rental records, finding that the second property was mysteriously relisted for rent in March, barely 2 months after that final photo of Celeste was taken. The timeline felt too perfect to ignore, and then, as if the story needed more fuel, people began dissecting his lyrics. One song in particular mentioned a line, "Don't run away, I've got a place you can stay." Suddenly, those words didn't sound romantic anymore. They sounded like a confession wrapped in melody. Still, nothing was proven, and yet, when you lay the pieces side by side, the hidden property, the unspoken silence, and the lyrics that hit too close to home, it's not hard to see why people started connecting the dots. Meanwhile, Fisher gave an even darker update that made the public gasp. In his own words, "A crime 100% happened here." He clarified that, at minimum, there was evidence of concealment of a body and hinted at finding disturbing physical items, suggesting a twisted plan to get rid of Celeste, something that thankfully never went through. He refused to go into details but made one chilling remark: "You can't charge someone for what they might have planned to do." Those words sent shivers through the internet because it meant there were traces of something unspeakable steps that had been imagined, maybe even prepared for, but never executed. As this revelation spread, another wave of speculation hit: the Tesla theory. Some online commenters claimed that Celeste's body had been hidden in David's Tesla when he left for tour, that the trip itself had been used as an alibi, a clever way to distance himself from a crime he didn't have to physically commit. It sounded outlandish, but people couldn't shake how neatly the pieces fit. The tour dates lined up, the car was reportedly abandoned later, and the online breadcrumbs looked eerily intentional. "He wasn't even in the state," one viral post read, but everything about the timing screams he knew exactly what was happening. No one could prove it, but the more you look at David's silence, the more it feels like fear disguised as control. And just when it seemed like this couldn't get darker, the question of Celeste's age emerged. Friends close to David reportedly told investigators they had no idea she was underage. They thought she was 19, maybe 20, old enough to attend USC events and even get into 21-plus clubs. Later, law enforcement confirmed Celeste had multiple fake IDs, which explained how she moved through circles that should have been off limits. But the revelation twisted the story even further because it blurred the lines between consent and deception, guilt and manipulation. Was David a predator, a victim of lies, or something in between? The silence around that question was deafening. Then came the discovery that David had quietly transferred ownership of 2 Houston area properties into a trust under his mother's name right after Celeste's death. On paper, it could have been estate planning, but to the public, it screamed damage control, especially because one of those addresses had been the same location hit by a fake 911 swatting incident months earlier, a chaotic scene that drew police to his family's doorstep in the middle of the night. Whether coincidence or cover-up, it painted the picture of a man bracing for impact, trying to protect what he could before the storm hit. Meanwhile, Celeste's family remained silent, not out of grief, but purpose. People began to suspect they were gathering evidence quietly, planning their legal strike. And when whispers of a possible lawsuit against David and his label began to surface, it no longer felt like rumor. It felt like inevitability. Because in the entertainment world, silence doesn't protect you, it isolates you. And if that lawsuit becomes public, it won't just expose David. It'll drag out every executive, manager, and label rep who looked the other way. That kind of negligence, if proven, could shatter more than one career. But beneath all the speculation, what haunts people most is the emotional void. The fact that David hasn't said a single word about Celeste. Not one post, not one tribute, not even a quote in passing. For someone who built his identity on emotional vulnerability and raw expression, that silence cuts deeper than any statement could. Fans who once found comfort in his lyrics now say they can't listen the same way anymore. Every melody feels tainted, every lyric sounds like a clue. The heartbreak that once felt universal now feels personal, like he's confessing through omission. And maybe that's the real tragedy here, the way art turns hollow when the truth behind it starts to rot. David's silence might be his legal team's strategy, but to the world, it's guilt painted as composure. His label's quiet might be about control, but it reads like complicity. And his disappearance from public life doesn't feel like mourning, it feels like hiding. Every day that passes without a word is another day that silence becomes its own kind of statement, one that says, I know something I can't afford to say. What makes this story even more disturbing is how familiar it feels. The music industry has a long history of burying uncomfortable truths beneath contracts, NDAs, and PR spin. The moment someone becomes profitable, morality takes a backseat to market value. And if Celeste's family truly moves forward with legal action, the fallout could stretch far beyond David. It could expose a culture that enabled silence as a survival tactic. Because when tragedy strikes the powerful, justice tends to wait for permission. But this time, people are watching closely. They've seen the pattern: the quiet press releases, the vanishing posts, the lawyers stepping in just before the truth does. Now, all that's left is the sound of silence, the kind that screams louder than guilt ever could. Whether David is hiding, grieving, or plotting his next move, the world has already decided what his quiet means. It means unanswered questions. It means something being protected. It means the truth hasn't been told yet. And if history has taught us anything, it's that secrets never stay buried. Eventually, the truth crawls out, whether by confession, by investigation, or by accident. And when it does, no statement, no song, and no apology can undo what's already been done. Because the truth about David's silence isn't in what he says, it's in what he refuses to say. And at this point, his silence is the loudest sound in the room. And maybe that's the most haunting part of all this, not the evidence, not the theories, but the silence that swallowed everything whole. Because silence, when left to grow, becomes its own kind of confession. It lets people project their fears, their suspicions, their darkest assumptions, and when you say nothing to stop it, you become whatever the silence allows you to be. For David, that silence has become his legacy. The boy who sang about heartbreak and vulnerability now hides behind walls of lawyers and locked phones. The same voice that once poured out emotion has vanished, replaced by static and whispers of guilt. People don't even argue about his innocence anymore. They just wonder what secret was big enough to shut him down completely. And as more threads connect, as the investigation deepens and the lawsuit looms closer, one truth remains impossible to deny. No matter how carefully you hide it, truth has a way of surfacing. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but it always does. And when it does, no silence will be loud enough to drown it out because some stories refuse to stay buried forever.